Willkommen, liebe Fliegerkameraden, hier bei Modellpilot.eu. Neben mir steht Dr. Jeff Underwood und er hat sich extra Zeit genommen, er ist drüben von den Restricted Areas von der Airbase rübergekommen. And this is the airbase, it's called
National Museum of the United States Air Force.
Yes, and the airfield is called the Wright.
This is Wright Field, part of Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. It's two big airfields that after World War II they merged together, so it's Wright-Patterson. And this is where in the interwar years they did all the research and testing. Before then, when jets showed up, they're too fast, and they moved it out to Edwards Air Force Base. So this is just a research and acquisitions area, but the museum is located here at Wright-Patterson, just outside of Dayton, Ohio.
Okay. Mr. Dr. Jeff Underwood, we're standing here in the first...
This is the beginning of military heavy-than-air. This is the 1909. This is a replica of the 1909 Wright Brothers military flyer. The Wrights actually helped the museum build this with parts that they gave us to put together. So it contains real parts from the Wright aircraft, and it's built to the exact dimensions of what the 1909 flyer was. So this is to represent the beginning of the U.S. Air Force in 1909. It's a pretty airplane. Even it's a strange-looking aircraft, and you can get nice and close to it. You can't touch it, but you can see how the wing warping would work, and you can see the controls very clearly. And mannequins give us a sense of scale, and the mannequins show what the uniforms look like, so people kind of get, this is how they dressed in 1909, and we know how people dress now. So you can look at it and compare and contrast. It makes a nice exhibit.
Okay, we'll translate it short. Es ist sehr interessant, 1909 ist das hier der erste militärische Flieger gewesen von den Gebrüdern Wright. Und man gibt jedem Besucher hier die Möglichkeit zu sehen, wie funktioniert es und wie ist die Geschichte der Air Force entstanden. Und es ist auch sehr schön bebildert. Hier an den Wänden sind Galerien aufgebaut, wie alles entstanden ist, vom Beginn der Fliegerei. Und wir haben sehr viele Ausstellungsstücke hier, zu denen wir jetzt noch gleich gehen werden. Tell us something about the employees.
Okay, the National Museum of the U.S. Air Force is a U.S. Air Force unit, and we have 96 employees that are full-time federal employees, but we also have 500 volunteers who, mostly that's who the public gets to see. They help us either giving tours, they help us doing research, they help us cataloging photographs, they help us actually restore these wonderful aircraft. So we have all kinds of interesting work for these people that can help us.
Okay. And I've talked with some volunteers, and I think they must be veterans.
Many of our volunteers, probably most of our volunteers are veterans. They've had some connection with the U.S. Air Force or with the U.S. military in one way or another, but not everybody. We're always interested in broader perspectives that people bring, and that's what we just love, having new volunteers. And volunteers come and go.
Okay.
Some volunteers come every day. Some work just a couple of hours a week, but they're trained so they know what to tell the public and how to help the public in case there's a problem, or if they have other questions, or how they can get in touch with us, the formal staff, if they have questions. And without our volunteers, we probably couldn't keep this. We have 17.5 acres.
Oh,
just the indoor side.
Yes.
That's climate control. That's a lot of space.
So let's have a look around and then translate later.
Absolutely.
Very short. I can make it translate in German now.
Sure.
Okay. Sie haben einen kleinen Stamm von Festangestellten hier im Museum, aber Sie können ohne die 500 Volunteers nicht arbeiten, die zum großen Teil Veteranen sind und teilweise auch nicht Veteranen sind. Sie helfen hier allen Besuchern, die Katalogisierung, sie zeigen zum Beispiel die schöne Afro, wie sie funktioniert nebenan. Die Flieger hier über uns sind ganz tolle Maschinen. Und wir gehen jetzt gleich mal weiter und zeigen so ein bisschen innerhalb des Interviews über das Nationale Air Force Museum, was es noch hier so alles zu sehen ist. Also, kommt mit. So,
let's go. Let's go see. probably didn't get the front, but this went through a major restoration, and I learned more about aircraft at the time by being able to physically walk up, and our restoration people showed me the stringers running down the side.
Hi, Jeff.
Hello again.
No, we are only 100 meters around.
We have just gotten started at the museum. It takes about 2.5 days if you stop and look at everything like I do and read, but not stop everything. It takes about 2.5 days to walk the entire museum. So we recommend people make several trips and kind of break it up, because after a while you just get overwhelmed by how much. But again, we just gone the short way, but you can see phenomenal SPAD 13,
yes.
A real SPAD 13. You can see a real Halberstadt. It's a phenomenal story, and we like to share it.
Okay. Have a look at another one.
Let's go look at some more airplanes. Contribution. This was built. This is a replica built with a real engine, real problem, various parts, probably like real DH. This is the main one. They all.
There's the Caproni CA-36.
Yes.
And it's one of the largest.
It's a strategic bomber from World War I, and this is a World War I veteran. Used by the Italians. Americans flew with the Italians as well. This aircraft represents the beginning of America's strategic bombardment, and why we think strategic bombardment was important to destroy industry, to stop a war quickly. This is the very beginnings of Americans getting involved. It's an interesting airplane.
Yes.
When you walk close and you can see the landing gear, it uses bungee cords for the landing gear to hold it together, so it has a bounce. You'll also notice at the very back of the aircraft, between the tail sections, the boom sections, you'll see where the gunner would stand, and there's another propeller swirling, literally, from me to you when he's firing a machine gun with a propeller whirling in front of him. With silver and gray, that's the gasoline tanks, and they've got their heads up against the gasoline tank, and these are not self-sealing gasoline tanks. So this is a dangerous airplane to fly.
I think so, yes, it is. And the person that can run on the platform about that.
They stand, it's a little gondola at the very back. It looks like a basket. Someone just sits in a basket, like you see somebody working on a power line now. That's what they're standing with another machine gunner in the front.
Also, es war schon damals mit dem Caproni, der ein italienisches Flugzeug ist, schon sehr schwierig, denn die Maschine ist sehr interessant deswegen, weil sie hat einen Bungee, also er hat das ist das erste gefederte, mit Gummi gefederte Fahrwerk, und was armed with machine guns. Okay, es ist also ausgerüstet mit Maschinengewehren gewesen, und die konnten von vorne und hinten bedient werden. Da hinten auch jemand so einen kleinen Korb drin steht und von dort aus da unten geschossen hat. Das war auch so der Beginn des Flächenbombardements, um schnell Industrien auszuschalten, um auf jeden Fall flächendeckend etwas zu zerstören, was in der Infrastruktur wichtig war für den Feind, um natürlich Vorteile daraus zu schaffen. Okay. It's climbing up to the next stations.
Yes, we're ending with World War I, and we're starting to go into the interwar years, between World War I and World War II, which is my favorite.
Okay.
That's my personal favorite.
Okay, tell us something about your favorites.
All my favorites. We have a Martin B-10.
Okay,
it's really worth seeing.
Also wir gehen jetzt mal zu der Martin B-10 rüber, und bis gleich, Jeff. This is not a B-10.
This is coming right. We're going around. We're in the middle of the interwar years. This is 1921 when Billy Mitchell goes out and sinks the captured German battleship, the Ostfriesland, to prove that an airplane can sink a battleship. This is the Martin B-10. I'm sorry, Martin B-2. And this is the style of aircraft they used, that Billy Mitchell used. This one's marked to represent the airplane that dropped the actual bomb that actually sank the Ostfriesland. And again, prove that an airplane could indeed sink a battleship. We have it with one of the wings folded to show how they rolled inside a hangar. These were clearly out overnight. And when you see this aircraft, you think 1920, 1921, 23, you think, wow. After going for the 1909 Wright Flyer and how that looks so dangerous, and this looks like okay, this looks like a real airplane now. Great stories.
Yes. Also es ist eine unglaubliche Entwicklung von den Wrights innerhalb ein paar Jahren bis 1929 hier zu der Maschine, die schon Ostfriesland bebombt hat. Im ersten Krieg. First World War was Ostfriesland. Und es ist so, dass die Entwicklung rasend schnell ist und Jeff, we're going around.
Yes, there's a lot to see.
Okay, hi Jeff, here we are.
Boeing P-26, the world's first modern fighter. It's got mixtures of something like World War I and mixtures from stuff like World War II. It's got the monowing, like a modern fighter. But then it has the fixed landing gear. It has two 30 caliber machine guns, which is like the World War I fighter. It's got enclosed, the cockpit's still open, but it's all metal. So it's one of those strange hybrid, they're making the transition, but this is the future. And it's an absolutely beautiful P-26 E-shooter.
Yes. And the aerodynamic, it's a new one than the other one.
This was early 1930s. Very, very early 1930s.
Also die Maschine ist so windschnittig gebaut und so gemacht und das ist so der Übergang zwischen dem Ersten Weltkrieg zum Zweiten Weltkrieg und das ist eigentlich das Zeichen, was in der Zukunft, also what happened in the future between the First World War to the Second World War. Und wir sind hier quasi in dem Bereich, wo it's the time, the space between the World Wars.
Yes, the interwar years.
Okay. Also wir sind jetzt zwischen den Zeiten sozusagen angelangt und Jeff hat uns da erklärt, dass die ganze Maschine jetzt aus Metall gebaut ist. Sie hat aus dem Ersten Weltkrieg ähnliche Maschinengewehre drin und sie hat ein offenes Cockpit und die ganze Aerodynamik ist schon ein neues Zeichen und läutet auch mit dem Metall und mit allem, was einem... how many original are built?
I mean, originally there were 200, 250, I'm not sure the exact number, but it's a small number.
That's a small number.
By World War II standards,
okay.
It was a tiny number.
Okay. Also es war eine kleine Nummer gegenüber dem, was im Zweiten Weltkrieg als Standard gebaut worden ist. So um die 200, 250 Stück sind gebaut worden. Aber sie dienten der Ausbildung, sie dienten, they were for experiments.
No, this was a fighter. This was a real fighter.
It was a real fighter. Also es ist kein Experiment, sondern es wurde richtig eingesetzt als Fighter. Also eine neue Ära beginnt und jetzt kommen wir, the next step is the B-10.
The Martin B-10.
Okay.
Your favorite. It's one of the jewels. That's one of my favorites, yes.
Okay, let's have a look. Jeff, we're just standing
in front of the world's only known surviving B-10, Martin B-10. This is the world's first modern bomber. This is the aircraft that could outrun the fighters that made the Americans in the early 1930s think the bombers could get through any defenses. This is before radar. And this changed American air power. It's this airplane. Okay, it's got a closed cockpit. You can see the shorter wings because the wings are specially designed here at Wright Field. And they allowed Martin to use these, the design for the wings. So it's just a wonderful airplane, nice, fast. It outrun the fighters we just saw just a few feet behind us, and changed American military air power. This airplane, and this is the last one known to be surviving. So.
Also es ist das letzte Stück, also das letzte Originalstück der B-10, wie es hier steht, und es wurden alle Elemente integriert, die quasi einen schnellen Angriff, auch einen schnellen Flugzeug entwickeln ließen. Und Martin hat hier auf diesem Airfield dieses mitentwickelt. So konnten sie es nutzen. Wir hatten eine reine Metallkonstruktion gehabt, die aerodynamisch ausgereift ist. Sie hatte starke Motoren, sie war sehr schnell und es war der erste Bomber, der wirklich richtig schnell eingesetzt werden konnte. Und damit hatte die US-Force eine richtig starke Maschine, die quasi im Verbund große Missions you get big missions with this.
Yes, long range.
Long ranges.
Heavy bomb for the day. A very heavy bomber.
Okay, ein sehr schwerer Bomber ist das jetzt in diesem Fall. Okay, thank you. We have to go on the next.
And they designed the wing structure, which is why this thing is so sharp. And they don't even have a second. Gets the spring, but it causes drag.
See, it's got those dollar clips too, like the one in the
Right here. Get out of here.
Thank you, Jeff. This was the first half.
Oh, this is
A quarter. A quarter of one hole of three.
a three.
Oh, it's amazing.
It's yes, we try to make it even more so. It gets bigger and better as we go along. This is the end of the interwar period, and you can see how the aircraft the United States had at the start of World War II, they weren't quite up to what the Europeans and then the Pacific theater, the Japanese were fighting, and we learned the hard way about preparedness. We were ill prepared when the war started. We caught it quickly, but again, this is to teach the lesson. If you're not ready for war, like George Washington said, prepare for war in times of peace, and we didn't do that. We thought we could stay out of the Second World War. Well, it came to us, and we had to pick up from there. And which is what you go to the next gallery, and you'll see all kinds of stuff and see how the war changed through it follows a chronological timeline.
Okay, I will follow you.
Okay.
I haven't any words for that. It's unbelievable.
Good.
Unbelievable.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Okay. I'm just following.
Go. Let's go.
Yeah, thank you. Hi Jeff, nice to meet you again.
Again, here we are in the World War II gallery.
Ah, okay. I think this is a Zero.
Yes, it's a Zero, an early variant of the Zero.
Okay.
Completely restored. And again, right behind it, we have the B-25. This is an A model. It represents Jimmy Doolittle's aircraft when he flew on the Doolittle Raiders attacked Tokyo. And absolutely, again, it changed the course of the war by a few men doing something very, very brave. This gallery is set up, starts with the very beginning of the war for the United States, with the attacks on Pearl Harbor and in the Philippines. It works its way around to the early Pacific years when basically the United States is just getting the daylights kicked out of it, leading up to the Doolittle raid where the tide begins to turn. The next area moves into training, and then the next area moves into North Africa, where the United States started fighting in North Africa, moves its way across North Africa into Europe, and to then the D-Day invasion in Normandy. And it finally swings around the very end, talks about operations in China, out in the Southwest Pacific, and it ends up with the airplane that ended World War II.
Of course, we have something to do.
Absolutely.
Thank you. These are the trainers.
And we're going from the training section where we're trying to get ready, where we're actually doing something. In North Africa in November 1942, the U.S. invades, and the fighting actually begins for us in Europe. We've been fighting in the Pacific, which is back behind us. And so now we're fighting in Europe.
Okay.
And
there's a special thing I've seen. Right over there, there's double motors.
The twin engine aircraft, yes.
And why?
There's a woman.
There's a
woman, yes. Women's
are flying too?
Yes, they were not flying combat. And here in the United States, what they did was they freed up men to fly combat by ferrying aircraft from factories or from place to place.
Okay.
Did outstanding work, but the United States began rotating as men flew the number of missions they had to fly, and they came back. Then the women, they didn't need women and men, so the women were sent home basically, which that was the way the world was. But the WASPs did a phenomenal job in helping the United States win the air war over Europe and over the Pacific and over China.
I think it's a nice touch for the...
It's a very important part of the Air Force's history because men, women are now involved in the Air Force.
Okay.
It's a different world. You can come here and you can see how different 1940s were from today.
Okay. Let's have a look.
Let's look. This airplane is one of the few B-24s left. Strawberry Bitch. This aircraft, silver stars were earned on this aircraft. This airplane is we're going to put the turret back under it. We took the turret out to use elsewhere, but we decided to go ahead and put the aircraft
Okay.
back because it's going to be. It's painted as desert colors. This is North Africa telling the story. This is one of the rarest aircraft we have because it's a D model B-24, and there's many thousands and thousands built. Only a few actually survive. So this is an important airplane.
Okay, tell us something more. We're going behind?
Okay, we're going to go behind. We can what we try to do. Believe it, as large as this place is, we have to use every foot of space. So we'll tell the B-24 story, but we'll also tell what B-24s were doing to support the resistance. These canisters were actually dropped through the Norwegian resistance units,
Okay.
and they were recovered for us and pulled out of trees. We have them on display to show that at night, painted B-24s, painted black, would fly in and drop supplies to them to fight the resistance. We have the Italian aircraft, but we have to tell several stories in the same space because we just, as big as these buildings are, they're not big enough. We'd like to just take that wall and stick it out another 100 feet, and we could do a whole lot more. But all it takes is time, money, and people.
Yes. This is a very interesting one. It's a
B-47.
Yes.
After landing, pilots debriefed. While maintenance crews immediately took stock.
Hi, Jeff.
Well, again, B-26. It's a Marauder. It was used to basically prepare for the invasion in June of 1944, the invasion of France. The section we're in right now that you've just been looking at, this is as the United States goes to England and starts fighting against the Germans, and the Italians also when they start getting further out from that area. But it starts with the interceptors going around and use the P-47 Thunderbolt, the nice pretty silver one here. It was just finished with restoration. It was used not only as a high altitude escort, but when it finished that, it would go down low on the ground and attack targets very low. And we have it painted and marked as one that's going on a low attack. Very, very sturdy aircraft. Leading back to B-26, which is again interdiction, cutting off supplies, cutting the bridges, cutting the roads, so that our enemies could not move around. It's always easier to move if you got the enemy boxed in than it is if they got free access. So that's what these men flew these aircraft to do. This was also used in the Pacific with great success. These were all used. The P-38 was used with great success in the Pacific as well. We have stories behind. If people don't understand how dangerous it was, they don't understand how dangerous it was. So we've taken a few precious feet of floor space to show what actually these aircraft had to fly against, the anti-aircraft that they had to fly against. I think it's well worth the time for people to stop and look at it. We've actually even taken a gun sight from World War II, and you can look inside the gun sight and you can see what a fighter pilot would see when he was trying to attack an enemy airplane. So again, making it a little more interactive, so not only do you see the airplanes when you come to this museum, but you get an understanding of what was actually, what's going on.
Also man hat hier in diesem Museum die Möglichkeit, nicht nur die fantastischen Flugzeuge in ihrer Entwicklung zu sehen, sondern auch, es wird auch wirklich gezeigt, in so interaktiv, also interactive between the enthusiasts about the nice birds,
Yes.
And the real war.
Yes.
Okay, und man hat wirklich auch hier in einer Art Education, was ist passiert, wie hat der Pilot es auch gesehen und wie gefährlich es auch ist, dieser Job als Kampfpilot, hier diese Missions zu machen. Okay, Jeff, now we're going to the other side?
We're going into the actual fighting for the control of the airspace over Europe right now. Okay. And then the next section we go into is the Southwest Pacific leading up to the end of the World War.
Okay.
So let's go.
Let's go.
Did y'all have a chance to come look at this? Like this one. Yes, take a moment actually. Okay, yes. Well,
Mr. Dr. Jeff Underwood, we're now standing at the German part, I think.
Yes.
And the Ju-88.
Ju-88. This was actually a combat veteran also. It was one that was being flown by the Romanians, and the pilot decided the war wasn't going the correct way, so he defected.
Okay.
This aircraft was brought right here to Wright Field to test so that our U.S. Army Air Forces could learn all the secrets of this aircraft. So that's why we have this aircraft on display. Not only show the U.S. Army Air Forces, but we also show the enemy's aircraft, just so people can, again, compare, contrast, and see the differences between the aircraft. They can look at the Ju-88, and they can stand right up here and look at the B-17 and the P-51, and they can decide for themselves which one they think is prettier, or which one they think looks more efficient. And we try to explain to them what's going on. And then we also end up having the first early variants of precision-guided weapons associated with the aircraft. So people think that precision-guided weapons are something new. Well, they were trying it in World War II because everybody wanted to have just one time on the target.
Also es ist so, dass neben uns hier die Ju-88D steht und die haben die Rumänen geflogen und dann kamen die dann sozusagen als Watch-Objekt nach Amerika, genau hier auf diese Airbase. Und es wurden dann dort geguckt, Mensch, was sind das für neue Geheimnisse, haben die denn neue Waffen drin und so weiter und so fort. Wie fliegt sie, wie kann man sie angreifen und so weiter und so fort. And you study this machine.
Absolutely.
And you study the enemy and how to get him.
Strengths and weaknesses.
Okay, where is the...
Shoot it down.
Yes, okay.
And defend against it.
And the Romania put it here.
Yes.
Is it okay? Thank you for the details.
Oh, it's a wonderful plane, isn't it?
Oh, yes.
This is our P-51D Mustang. This is the aircraft that helped us win air superiority in Europe. It not only has the weapons, the 350 caliber machine guns on each wing, but it also is using drop tanks that allow this long-range aircraft to go even further range. Now American fighters could escort our bombers all the way to deep into Germany and back all the way, which allowed the bombers to strike those deep strategic targets that they had to hit. As the Germans continued to move their factories further and further away from American bombers, it reached a point they could not get away from it, which is why the Air Force tries to destroy the factories so that there's no weapons to fight us with on the ground. That's the whole purpose. This individual aircraft is marked as one that flew out of Italy, with the 325th Fighter Group, and that has a nice little checkered tail on the back end, which is a very colorful airplane. So we have a nice little contrast between the little friends and then our big friends, the bombers.
Okay. Okay.
We're standing
the
Messerschmitt Me-262,
it's one of the
jet fighter, twin-engine jet fighter. Some of the captured ones were brought back here to the United States to test. We have it marked as an operational aircraft. It's one of our more popular aircraft. People like to see this airplane a lot, so we have it in a very open place. And if you miss this, then you had your eyes closed walking through the entire museum.
What was the historian about this special aircraft?
This aircraft it's one of the first operational jet. This was probably the first operational jet fighter to be used in combat. The United States, the Royal Air Force, and the Germans are all trying to get a jet fighter. The Germans got theirs on the front first, and they saw limited combat because by that time the Americans had so much air power that it wasn't going to change the war, but it certainly made it much more difficult and much, much more dangerous at the very end. But it set the tone for the rest of the 20th century. Piston engine aircraft simply won't be able to survive in a world with jets. So again, this is a moment in time with just a year, not even really a full year, where it changes the shape and future of military aviation.
Mm-hmm.
It's a beautiful airplane.
What do you think about the Air Force, the German Luftwaffe, take this earlier? is it possible that change the air strong forces between
Had the Luftwaffe had this aircraft earlier,
yes,
I don't think it made much difference. It may have extended the war a little bit longer.
yes,
Had it extended the war a little bit longer, the first atomic weapons may not have been used over Japan. They may have been used in Europe. It's one of those things that what if, and it makes fun. It makes a lot of fun for discussions, but realistically, by the time that these were coming into combat, the Russians were doing so much, the Americans, the British were doing so much. They had destroyed so much of German industry. It was inevitable. It would just made it last longer and it cost a lot more human lives in the long run.
Happy about that it's finished quickly as can.
I'm glad. Yes, I'm glad. It was the sooner it was finished, the better.
Okay. Okay. This was the first combat with turbines.
Yes.
And we're looking right over here. What kind of...
As we're leaving the end of World War II,
okay.
and we're starting in the Southwest Pacific as the Americans make the drive back toward the Philippines and toward the final invasion of Japan, which we're expecting huge numbers of casualties to attack Japan. No one knows, not many people know that the United States is working on a secret weapon, which is the atomic bomb, that absolutely changes warfare forever. So as we go through here, we try to make people understand that no one knew that the bomb was there. We did, but they didn't. And so the fighting continued in China and in the Southwest Pacific, pushing its way toward the final defeat of Japan. And that's what this next section of the museum is about.
Okay, let's go.
Just so you know, I think the atomic
in addition, armor plating will be done safely, leaving home.
Hi, we're standing here in front of Boxcar. This is the airplane that ended World War II. This is the airplane. It's the one that dropped atomic weapons on the Japanese city of Nagasaki. And we have a fat man and a little boy. These are the real things. They're militarized, but they are the real weapons. So people can not only come to the museum and see the real airplane that ended World War II, they can see the weapons that were used. And as horrific as the weapons are, they're still part of history. It's important to let people see so they can tell themselves when they read about things in school or later in life, they can say, oh, I know how big a B-21 is. I've seen it's one of the two most important airplanes we have, this one, and we also have John Kennedy's Air Force One. But this absolutely holds on against any aircraft in the world.
I feel a little bit different about that.
That is why you come to museums and so you can look at it, and that's exactly what we want people to do, is feel different, look at it, and decide for yourself. That's great. That's exactly what we want them to do.
So thank you for that impressions of the first hall. And would you show us the next one?
Certainly. Let's go look at some other aircraft.
Thank you. Jeff.
Yes.
Now tell us something about that.
This is one of our interesting aircraft. This is an airplane to teach someone how to commit suicide. Oh, this is one of the Japanese kamikaze aircraft. But this is the trainer. They developed a rocket-powered one, but the pilots weren't experienced in flying a rocket-powered aircraft, so the Japanese developed a trainer that they would drop from the wing of a bomber, and the pilot could learn how to fly it.
Ah, okay.
So, if anyone needs any suggestions about how vicious the war in the Pacific had gone, you have something to train men to commit suicide. That's how bitter that war had become in just 4 years. It was a vicious war, and it looks kind of innocent, but again, just the thought of having to train a man to commit suicide is interesting. Just in front of our P-61 night fighter, which is another, in its own right, it's a very, very interesting, kind of hard to see because, oh, it's painted black, and that was the whole purpose, so it'd be hard to see.
Going by night.
Going by night. So we have something as bright as this. It's a trainer, so you need to be able to see it. Something as dark that you don't really see it. Little nice juxtaposition, compare and contrast. We historians like to compare and contrast.
Well, thank you.
We have Global Hawk. Looks a big. This is the one that was one of the first two that deployed to Afghanistan after September 11th. This is the one that was bombed. This one is bombed. You can see all the missions on the sun. So that's the real thing. We have a Reaper. That's the one that's taking the place of the Predator. This is a hunter-killer versus just a hunter. We have an A-1 Skyraider, Medal of Honor. Bernie Fisher flew this airplane. The first B-52 hit by a surface-to-air missile is this one.
Jeff, now you tell us something from the beginning, from the Wrights to just actual fighter. And tell us something about the construction now.
Okay, well, we've just gone all the way around in just a matter of a few short hours. We've seen the transition from 1909 all the way up to the most modern jet fighter, F-22. This is the F-22 Raptor. This is the United States' best aircraft. It's absolutely beautiful airplane. This is a real one. This is not a prototype. This is the real one. It was damaged during testing to make sure it's flyable, and that's why we can have a multi-million-dollar airplane in a museum, because it's not combat worthy, but we can use this aircraft to explain to the American people and to all of our visitors why the U.S. Air Force does what the U.S. Air Force wants to do. Win air superiority first, and by the time, as we've seen as you go through here, once you win air superiority, you can do pretty much what you need to do as far as using air power. That's always what the Air Force tries to do, and that's what this aircraft is perfectly suited for. You can see the weapons bay popped open. It's a stealth fighter, high altitude. It has the engines. It can run at supersonic speed just as long as it needs to. Stealthy, good looking. The radar in the front is leading edge of the world. And as visitors come through the museum, they get a chance to look at it and see for themselves. Again, we give the visitor a chance to see for themselves, so when they go home and they read about F-22s in the newspaper or see them on TV, they can say, oh, I've seen one, I know what that is, and they have a better understanding of what's being told.
Yes. In the next hall,
yes, right now we're in the Southeast Asia War. This is the second building.
This is the second building.
The Southeast Asia Gallery is under renovation. It's going to be spectacular when we're finished. We have just finished the Korean War Gallery, completely updating it. So we have one gallery assigned to each war in this one building.
Okay.
The next building, we got two more buildings after this. Another one bigger than this one. And this is our Cold War, and it brings up to the current operations going on around the world. And then we got the Hall of Missiles.
Oh, okay.
Where you can go in and you can actually walk up closer to the ICBM than anyone would ever think they have a chance to see. And there's a couple of views that if visitors don't go up and see them, they miss just a spectacular world. So let's go look at it. Why talk about it? Let's go look. This individual? That individual. What is that? When you go around, you can get up underneath the seat.
Hi, Jeff.
Hello again. Here we are in the Cold War Gallery.
Okay. Tell us something about that.
Okay, this Cold War Gallery has about 200,000 square feet of exhibit space. It's climate controlled. We have aircraft from the beginning of the Cold War, from the very end of World War II, all the way around the museum, ending up with a B-2 stealth bomber. And then our next smaller building over is the Hall of Missiles, where we have ICBMs standing erect, and you can walk around them and you can go up to the next level and get a view that no one else has ever had before. So if you're interested in the history of the Cold War and the United States part, the United States Air Force's part in the Cold War, this is the place to go.
Okay, thank you about that. Let us show something about the stealth bomber.
Let's go look at the stealth bomber.
Yes.
It's just over here.
U-2, I see.
We have a U-2 and we have the SR-71 Blackbird, which is one of our most popular airplanes. So why talk when we go look at them?
Okay, let's go.
Flight comes out of the United States, and that's what the B-2 is. This this plane is going to be flying for a very long time, providing powerful land. Yes, this club can preserve peace.
I thought this ship never existed.
No, Jeff.
Well, we're here on the mezzanine, the Cold War Gallery, and it's got quite a vista, doesn't it? You can see the entire sweep of American military air power from 1945 up till the present, just by standing at this one place and looking over. It's quite a view, pretty spectacular, and you get views of aircraft that you don't get anywhere else on this mezzanine. So we always recommend people take just a few minutes, walk all the way back here, if nothing else, and just kind of look around, just to get a peek.
How many people are coming all the years to this museum?
The museum draws about 1.25 million visitors a year.
Unbelievable.
Some years there's more, some years a little bit less, but it's about 1.25 seems to be the standard. And of those, about 15% tend to be foreign visitors, which is good. Coming to Dayton is always an entertaining trip, but this museum, I think, makes it worth, especially if you got to come from Europe. You've come a long way to visit, so we're really glad you did. And we hope only in the future to make it even more entertaining and make it more worthwhile to come. I hope there's something for just about anybody. Personally, I like airplanes that have open cockpits. Other people come through who like to see nothing but the spacecraft. Other people only want to see World War II. Other people want to see only Cold War. And then others come through who just want to see everything. So
for everybody?
Everybody, we try to. And it's not, I hope you can see it's not just airplanes. It's the stories about people who actually flew and maintained these aircraft, the men and women of the United States Air Force.
We see the U-2 right out there.
This is a great place to stand, isn't it? We have our U-2, which tells the story of high altitude reconnaissance. And the way you win is either get above your enemy or go faster. That aircraft gets above the enemy, takes photographs for reconnaissance, and it is used to verify and prove things. Also to discover. Well, that's also the one that was shot down. Gary Powers was shot down. They were shot down over Cuba as well, which the surface-to-air missile, again, no military technology is static. Something's always out there changing. So to make up for the SA-2s that could get to the altitude where this aircraft was flying, we developed, the United States Air Force, Lockheed developed this aircraft behind me, which is the SR-71 Lockheed, the world's fastest airplane. This is record holder aircraft, and it's one of our most popular aircraft in the museum. From where we're standing, you can get an idea. even sitting on the ground in this big building, it looks fast. And we know it's even faster than it was. So we love having people come in and look at this aircraft, and they can compare this aircraft or that aircraft and get the two basic principles. Either got to go faster than your enemy, or you got to get above it.
You know, above and fast.
And faster, absolutely. So,
How quick it is?
I have no idea. It's like 4,000 miles an hour.
Unbelievable.
I believe the actual speed is probably still classified, but it goes a lot faster than my car.
And it must be very hot, the physical.
Well, the speed, they have to use titanium for the fuselage to build it because it gets so hot. And to make it get so hot and the metal expands that when they would sit on the ground, they put a little fuel into it, they start leaking a little bit.
Oh.
And when it got up to altitude and got faster, the heat would expand and so that got the seals go away and then refuel and then it would go off the transmission. They refuel during flight, which gave it
Then you can go up.
then you can get after it from really high and really, really fast.
May I translate it?
Absolutely.
Okay. Also wir stehen hier in einer unglaublich tollen Halle, die uns etwas erklärt. Und zwar, jetzt haben wir es nur als Beispiel rausgenommen, die U2, die oben steht, die U2, die war eigentlich dafür da, dass man den Krieg von oben quasi beherrscht, nach dem Motto, entweder gehst du höher oder du bist schneller. Und die U2 war dann höher und in diesem never-ending story of changing new
military technology always changes.
Genau, und die hat sich alles geändert in der Zwischenzeit. Dann wurde sie abgeschossen, die U2, und dann müssen wir was Schnelleres machen. Dann wurde quasi hier in Zusammenarbeit mit Lockheed diese Blackbird gebaut. Is it still flying today?
They are no longer flying. They were too expensive to fly.
Okay, sie fliegt nicht mehr, aber die hat eine Eigenart. Sie wurde gestartet, da tropfte das Kerosin noch heraus und weil sie ja quasi in hohen Geschwindigkeiten fliegt, hat sie auch hohe Temperaturen. Und sie ist in Titan gebaut, it's building up Titan. Yes. Und da tropfte es ein bisschen raus und sobald es oben war, ein bisschen wärmer, war dann die Maschine dicht und dann wurde sie betankt in der Luft. Tanked up in the air, and then it's going up in the higher stratosphere.
Now, again,
Yes.
get higher and faster. Well, even higher and faster is what the Air Force is doing now. We're using satellites. These are still doing, U-2 is still doing wonderful work. This did great work. We now have satellites that can do what these aircraft are doing in conjunction. We're going to build another building on the museum. As big as this one on the next side over, and that's where we're going to have our space gallery. Because the Air Force is going into space. And the Air Force has been in space.
Okay.
And we have to try to keep up with the Air Force. It's tough for a museum to keep up with something like the United States Air Force is that dynamic. But we're trying.
Okay. Und jetzt ist es so, sie brauchen die Maschinen nicht mehr, weil sie Satelliten in den Himmel geschossen haben. Und weil sie gerade Satelliten in den Himmel geschossen haben, wird jetzt auch die Erweiterung, weil auch die Geschichte ja weitergeht, es ist ja ein Kontinuum, wird dieses auch dort in den nächsten Hallen zu sehen sein. And show us now the last
last
hall.
section.
Yes,
The Hall of Missiles. Hall of Missiles.
And you bring us to the place that we never.
Yes, right over here. And let's go look at something you've probably never seen before.
Okay, thank you. We're starting now.
We're about to go into our space gallery.
Yes.
This is just the beginning. We're going to build another building on the other side that's as big as the Cold War gallery, 200,000 square feet of included space.
200,000 square feet. Unbelievable.
Absolutely. We're looking forward to doing that because we'll be able to put our space on display. We'll be able to move the presidential gallery. All the presidential aircraft will be over there. And then we're going to have one area for airlifters as well. So we have the C-130s. We're going to get a C-5. We're going to get a C-17. We are an Air Force unit, so we get first choice. So we're going to get the best ones. What people want to see.
Okay, what do you think
Well, right here in front of us, this is America in Space. This is Apollo 15. The reason we have it, it's on loan to us from the National Air and Space Museum. The reason why we have it is because it has an all Air Force crew. And that's what we're trying to tell is the story of the United States Air Force. And what better way to tell the Air Force story in space than by showing Apollo 15.
Okay, wir stehen hier vor der Kapsel der Apollo 15 und jetzt geht die Air Force in Space sozusagen und Dr. Jeff Underwood wird uns jetzt quasi nochmal weiterführen in den hinteren Bereich, wo die Missiles stehen.
Now, I strongly recommend you walk around and get the elevator, take the elevator, walk around. I'm going to take these down from there. Good Atlas. It's tight. It's tight. That's good. Okay, you can see that each of these, we have special concrete for each of these. And inside the concrete, where every one of these bases are, it's even deeper down than the steel platform. So we have room for one more, and then one more back over there.
Hi Jeff, we're inside now.
This is the Hall of Missiles. We allow people to stand next to missiles that were not only used as ICBMs, but some of them were used as the Air Force launch vehicles to take Gemini into space, the two-man space capsules that took men into space. And so people can get a first-hand idea of how large these vehicles are. And we're fortunate to have them all in one place, all inside. And we also have other space artifacts. The Air Force is very, very, very heavily involved in space, and we're trying to explain to the American people and our other visitors, our foreign visitors, what this all means. And again, you're at a museum, so now when somebody reads about a Titan II, they will know what a Titan II actually looks like. They can also walk over here and see a Sputnik. That's a real Sputnik. It was made by the same company, but we have it on display to show how small it can be and how something so small can scare so many people in an arms race. And that's all part of the educational experience of coming to a museum.
It was the first beep in this.
First beeps. Oh, it's an interesting artifact.
Okay, thank you. And
So-
you just bring us to the second floor?
Yes, let's go to the second floor and we'll look around. You're going to see a spectacular view.
Thank you. Hi, Jeff.
Well, do you like the second floor?
Yes, I saw the little ball right over there.
Little basketball size
Yes.
ball, the nice and shiny silver. That's the Sputnik. That was built for us by the company that actually produced Sputnik. And as people come around the second floor, they can get a pretty good look at it. It's like just think it scared millions and millions of people because it was launched in space, and oh, the Soviets are ahead of us, and it scared the Western world to death. And then as you turn around and you see these ICBMs and others, you can also see how satellites have changed from all the effort to get that into space to something as this is huge. This is like 3 cars tied together and launched into space. This is a DSP satellite. Satellites. This shows why these vehicles are so large, the amount of weight they have to carry into space, and that's why the space shuttle was used to carry such large. So I'm looking forward to the next iteration of what space is going to be for the U.S. Air Force. So this is a good place to start.
And how many years between this?
Oh, this is what, 1960, and this is these are still flying in space. They're being replaced, but they've 40 years.
40 years? It's quick.
That's pretty quick.
Jeff, thank you very much.
Well, it's been my pleasure.
It was a great honor for us and a very good present, a big gift to give it to modelpilot.ecouniform and from the government, and we will you make us proud.
We are so happy. We're so happy you came.
To give us this great honor for us.
Well, this is not just for the Air Force. This is for the entire world. We welcome visitors from all. We get about 15% of our visitors, about 1.25 million visitors a year. At least 15% are from overseas. So the more the merrier.
Thank you very much.
Come visit Dayton.
Dr. Jeff Underwood, thank you for that. thank you especially for the museum, the National Air Force Museum, to Rob Barbour and Teresa Montgomery, which make it happen.
Yes, absolutely.
And thank you especially for you. It was a great show you did it.
See, now it's fun to come to museums, isn't it?
It's really fun. It's very interesting, and you show us everything from the beginning until
The future.
future, maybe.
Yes.
But still yet, and what in the future will happen, and you see that in the next hall.
Absolutely. Yes, the next building.
And I will come back.
And it changes all the time. There's always something new.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Visitors to the opening of the White RV